the biggest challenge has always been is to want to or have the, let's call it the wherewithal. No, it's the guts, to have the guts to be able to say something that's different than what everybody else in financial services says.
Fascinating.
I think it's all about messaging, and people don't feel comfortable going outside. So for instance, we have got this team that we're working with right now, and they told their whole story. All the principals in the firm told the whole story to me. And these guys have a blue collar value structure. And I'm like, this is different. And they talk about it with their clients, and they really all grew up blue collar. And now they're these successful financial advisors. But that core, and I said, well, we need to do this and this, and we need to message it. And they're like, wait a minute, we don't know if we want to put that on our website, because we want to fit in. But in marketing, the whole goal is, how can we find a way to get that firm to stand out from all the competitors, because we believe that they do. And we'll find the things that make you stand out, and then we'll recommend that you use them. And it's whether or not you want to use them.
Welcome to Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets, the go-to podcast for financial advisors aiming to grow their assets under management, stand out in a crowded market, and retain assets nearly forever. Are you advising high net worth clients who own appreciated capital assets? Do you want to help them sell without losing a quarter, a third, or even more of their hard-earned profits to capital gains taxes? Then this podcast is tailored for you. Each episode brings you the latest strategies and expert advice from leading financial advisors, seasoned attorneys, and experienced CPAs. Learn how to maximize your clients' wealth, minimize their taxes, and supercharge your advisory practice with actionable insights. Join us on Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets, where you'll gain the knowledge and tools to set yourself apart and achieve unparalleled success in wealth management. Subscribe now and empower your practice for a brighter, more prosperous future. Welcome to Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets. I'm your host, Roger Silk. Our guest today is Maribeth Kuzmeski. Maribeth is the president of Red Zone Marketing, and she works with many of the nation's top independent producers, financial professionals, mainly in the range of 300 million to about $1 billion. She got her start, as I understand it, taking a $10 million practice, and within 5 years growing that to 200 million. And she's going to tell us about how she did that. Maribeth is also a PhD and a professor at Oklahoma State University, and we'll be talking to her about that as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Maribeth.
Thank you.
Good to have you. I could start on any of those things. And most people listening to this would think 10 million to 200 million in 5 years. How did you do that?
Well, it was an interesting situation, because the financial advisor did not, he had $10 million of money under management. He didn't have any money to spend on marketing. And so we had to come up with a way that was going to be reasonable for his pocketbook, but also something that was going to work. And so we basically picked 3 different niches that he had some connection to the clients that worked at those companies. And then we just went after it. And basically it was a seminar strategy, but it was very niche focused. So for instance, we held a weekly seminar, and it was held twice a night on a week. And this particular seminar was how to retire from this one particular company without making big mistakes. That was the title of the first time that we did this. We didn't have a lot of money to spend on marketing. So we asked the few clients that he had that worked at that company, would you pass the word along? So we hold the first seminar and 0 people show up. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to get fired. This is not good, right? But we went back to those same people and said, hey, would you mind, we're doing another one like this. Would you mind just passing along these, we had like a flyer. Would you mind passing it along to some people? And so we tried it again. And the second time it worked. And I think we probably had 8 people that came, and it kept building and building and building. Now, how much money did this financial advisor spend on this seminar? Well, really nothing, because he printed off a few flyers, sent them to the people because literally sent them in the mail, like a stack of them, to people that he knew that worked at that company. They passed them out for him. So there was no big direct mail costs. There was no, we didn't serve a meal. We had Chex Mix from Sam's Club. That was it, right? But once the word started to get around, this was an incredibly popular seminar that if you were retiring from this particular big company that happened to be in, very close to his town, you wanted to go to this. And he started building it with $300,000 clients and $400,000 clients. And then it grew to being, okay, now we're getting $1 million clients and multi-million-dollar clients who are getting ready to retire. So it sort of started off in the manufacturing part of that company and moved up to the executive level. But he built his credibility at this one company. And then we did it at 2 other companies, and it was very similar, the same thing.
What a great story. I do have one question now. What was the difference between the first time when you got 0 and the second time when you got 8?
We didn't do anything differently. We asked the same people. We only knew a few people in that company. We asked them again, hey, we're doing a seminar. Would you mind passing these along? And either they didn't pass them along the first time, or it just didn't, whatever reason, it didn't track the first time. And that's a good example of giving up. He could have just said, this is never going to work. This is a dumb idea. But it was all referral based, niche based, and it was based on word of mouth. So if these people didn't pass the word along, which we couldn't force them to do, then, it wasn't going to work. But then we found that it was going to work. And the other part of the strategy was we started to invite the people that had already retired from the company and still knew people back at the company to come to a retirement seminar that really had nothing to do with them. Like they had already retired, right? So, but they were there mostly for the Chex Mix and for the camaraderie, and it worked. Yeah. But it was really, I think it was just persistence more than any specific type of a strategy. It was just persistence.
In addition to your professional work helping people do this, you're also a professor. You teach marketing. So my experience, which I'm not a marketing guy, has been that most marketing things don't work. And so you're telling me that this client who had 10 million tried something and didn't work. Is that to be expected, and you have to keep trying things until you find something that works?
Yeah, I think you have to keep trying things. I mean, marketing is an art and a science. And you hear about somebody in New York who's doing something, and you're in Nebraska, and you go, well, I'm just going to do what that guy does. And it doesn't work because it's a different area of the country, and there's different kinds of people that they're trying to attract. And so strategies often need to be tweaked, or you just need to give them a chance. And I think for this one, it was just give it a chance, because it didn't matter if 2 people showed up. We just needed someone to show up, because we knew if they showed up, that the seminar that we created was going to be good. They were going to go, oh, okay, wow, I didn't know about this and this and this, and I could retire early, and all sorts of things that, any financial advisor knows, but you have to have the opportunity to present it to the people that don't know you. And so I think it's more about persistence. Now, you can talk about, okay, well, I tried something on social media and that didn't work. Well, again, I think it's more persistence and perfection than it is that just doesn't work, because it certainly does work for some people. It's a matter of finding what the right mix is for you, for your area of the country, for your niche, all of those kinds of things.
So that was how you got your start, I understand.
Yeah.
And now you're working with billion-dollar AUM managers. What's different? What's the same? Like when you who's your ideal client? And well, let's start there. Who's your ideal client now?
Yeah, typically now an ideal client is not someone who's just starting off in the business, right? Because we know that just takes some hard work and some grinding it out. And the seminar strategy that I did, years ago would still work, but you don't have any money to spend on a marketing consultant to do that with you, right? So it's not really an ideal client for us. We write about it, we talk about it, we try to give ideas, But our ideal client is somebody who's looking to next level their business. So maybe you're at $1 million in gross and you want to go to the next, or you have 100 million under management, or maybe you have 500 million under management, and you go, you know what, in the next 10 years, I want to get up to $1 billion because I want to sell this thing and I want to be able to have some value. So those are the kind of things that we're doing now, which is probably in the past 15 years, that's really what we focused on, is those who have found some success and are looking to really amp it up and need some strategic input and some strategies to be able to say, okay, these are the smart things to do. These are the smart things to try. And these are the things that we know are working. Let's figure out what the right mix is for you.
What are the kinds of things that you would be exposing advisors? Some advisors listening to this, and maybe he's got 200 million and he wants to grow to 500 million. What kinds of things, like how would you approach that conversation? He says,
so
hey, I'm thinking about, I heard about you. How can you help us?
Yeah, so we usually start with a strategy session. And a strategy session is not me saying, here are the 10 things you need to do to be successful. Because let's say one of those things is, I need you to go out and network 3 times a week. And you're like, but I don't like networking. Or you need to run a series of seminars. You're like, but I don't want to do seminars. So we have to have strategies that the organization has the propensity to actually do, right? So we have to figure out what was done before, what's worked. Let's say you brought in a decent amount of clients. Okay, maybe you brought them in through referrals. Let's get into that. Let's figure out why you were able to do that. And let's see if we can take that to the next level. Because a lot of times it's the client experience, it's client services, all those kinds of things. It's your team. And then how do we take that, what we know has made you great, and expand it out? And a lot of times that's through becoming a thought leader, writing articles. It could be done through social media. It could be done through advertisements. It could be done through promoting yourself on LinkedIn. The first thing that we almost always do is fix the website, because the website is the first place that a prospect is going to check. And let's say you go, well, I get 90% of my new business is referrals. Okay. So what is helping that referral make that decision to come in and see you? Because just because Joe client said, you got to go see this guy, doesn't mean that that person is going to do it. Because what is that person going to do? First and foremost, they're going to Google search you. They're going to find out where your office is, what's your website, what is this person all about? And that snapshot, which by the way, is typically 1 minute and 30 seconds that they will spend on your website, they're making a decision to either email, call, schedule, or put it off. And the idea is, and what we found over the years, is that most prospects who are either changing advisors or getting an advisor for the first time, because they'd rather not meet with a financial advisor. It's like going to the dentist for the first time. You're like, I think it's going to hurt. They don't necessarily want to go to that financial advisor because it requires bearing your soul. It requires telling all sorts of things that maybe you don't necessarily want to talk about, because there's not a single person in this world who's perfect with their money. So now you got to go talk to somebody. So we've got to reduce that barrier. We've got to close that disconnect between this is a good idea and I'm just going to put it off. We got to close that disconnect. And we do that through the website and through other social presence. So social presence, not to drive prospects to you that have never heard of you, but this brand that is created so that people that have heard about you decide to move forward. What a lot of financial advisors don't know is how many referrals have they not converted because somebody went to their website and said, nah, I don't think I'm going to do this right now. And they find a reason to put it off until it becomes a critical emergency.
Does your firm do website design?
We do website writing. It depends. We can do website design, but most financial advisors are using they already have some kind of a website. Maybe it's a WordPress site, or maybe it's Squarespace, or maybe they're using
they've got a template or something like that.
And so what we do is we work with the provider that they already have, or the platform that they already have in a lot of cases, and help them figure out what should that messaging be? What should the calls to action be? Where are we getting people to go? click here to schedule your appointment. Where does that need to be placed? We do heat maps and we figure out where are people actually clicking on websites so that we can get to the highest common denominator in terms of let's make sure that if this client who is a ideal client, a potential client comes to this website, that we know where they're going to go and what they're going to do, because we've sort of designed it that way. And that's a really critical piece. So website writing, website design, revamping social media profiles, putting together writing articles, blogs. We help advisors with videos, creating video shorts, like a ton of video shorts, so that you've got all these topics and you've got all these topics out there. Somebody comes who's a prospect, or maybe somebody searches you cold and says, oh, this guy seems to know a lot about these things and he's got all this content. I like him. That's what video does, right? You can kind of decide whether you like somebody or not based on their presence on video. And so it's a combination of every single marketing thing that you could think of. And that's where we focus. We even incorporate AI into the things that we're doing to be able to help the advisors streamline their client experience so that more referrals come in. And even when you're talking about the higher net worth people, they are not necessarily going to their mailbox or Google searching for a financial advisor. They are asking somebody that they trust. They're asking their CPA, they're asking their lawyer, they're asking their friend, their father, whatever it is, they're asking somebody they trust. Who do you go to? And that leads to, okay, now I've got a name. Now the financial advisor's job is not to prospect that person, it's to convert them into an appointment.
Maribeth, what do you have? One standard engagement? You have a range of engagements. People can hire you for this and not that. How does it work?
Yeah, so we have a range of engagements. So, for instance, anything from just simple website writing to designing a capabilities deck. So, if you're presenting to a prospect or presenting to a CPA or an attorney, well, how are you presenting your firm in a way that you could do over Zoom, where you've got some graphics and it looks really nice and you're very prepared? So we do a lot of capabilities decks. Those are all sort of project based. We'll even do, social media revamps, writing bios, doing all those kinds of things. But then we do full strategy, which is we'll do a strategy session, we'll lay out an entire action plan, and then in some cases, we'll help them implement that plan. In some cases, we'll help them hire somebody or train whomever they have on staff to be able to take that action plan and continue it into work, into implementation.
Are your client engagements typically one and done, or it's a 3-month project, or is it ongoing typically?
Yeah, it's typically almost everything is project based because we're working with successful financial advisors. Well, we do some coaching. So let me just take that back for a second. We do some coaching. Coaching can last 6 months and then you can re-up for another 6 months or another 6 months. Coaching is a little bit different. We're talking about consulting. Typically, the longest engagement we have on consulting is 3 months. And the reason for that is sometimes it's a little bit longer than that, depending. But the reason for that is we're working with a higher level firm. That firm almost always has somebody on staff who's doing marketing. And if they don't, we recommend that they get somebody. So they don't need to have a marketing consulting firm on retainer. They just need to find the strategy and the direction and use one of their smart internal people to make that happen, as opposed to having us on retainer forever. Now, the coaching is a little bit different. We do that longer term, and we've got some engagements with some larger firms where they will, have us work with their people for 6 months at a time.
In your thinking, in your practice, do you draw a sharp line, a blurry line, no line between marketing and sales?
I mean, there's a line, but marketing when I teach marketing, part of marketing is sales. But at its essence, marketing is designed to support sales. So marketing is designed to tee it up for the salesperson. Now, we do get involved in sales because back a long time ago, we used to create seminars and presentations and all this, and financial advisors would go out and do these presentations, and then they weren't able to close the people that came. And I thought, okay, because they were newer at all of this, so we do some sales training as it relates to that. But to me, marketing supports sales, And sales is a different effort, although we know a lot of, I mean, I personally know a lot about sales and what's working and what's not working, but it's two different things.
In the typical practice, who comes to you, are they having more issues on the marketing side or on the sales side or combination?
Yeah, it's almost always the marketing side. And we've seen that when it shows in the results, because if we get enough at bats for the financial advisor that those that we work with that are, have already shown that they're very successful, if we get them enough at bats, they're going to close most of them. So, and we see that from results. So if we line them up, they're going to close them. Very rarely is it that, oh, we have all these prospects and we're having all these meetings and we can't close anybody. That's rarely the issue. It's getting somebody in front of them. It's just like that seminar, that I was talking about before. We just needed somebody to see the seminar and go, oh my gosh, this is the information that I need, right? We just need to get somebody in front of a seasoned financial advisor who already knows all of this stuff. We just have to give them enough at bats.
And the range of firms that you work with. So if I think your website says 300 million to a billion is sort of and so to me, that's anywhere from maybe one or two people to maybe 10 people is client facing professionals. Is that sort of your market or am I missing something?
No, that's typically it. There are some firms that we work with that are multi-billion and they've got multiple people and multiple advisors. And there's a different strategy for that too, because you've got one RIA firm, but they've got multiple advisors. Each of those advisors could have a different niche within the brand of that RIA. And so that requires some different strategy. And we do work with firms like that as well. We also work with asset managers, helping with practice management so that those asset managers can sell more through those financial advisors by helping those financial advisors with their practice management. So we develop tools and strategies for wholesalers to then go deliver to the financial advisors they call on.
Okay. Is your typical engagement fixed fee or is it performance based or something else?
It's typically fixed fee. And the way that we do it is, they're reasonable fees in terms of what fits in with what the market will bear. And we usually have people pay half up front and the rest of it when the project is done. And we always have 100% guarantee. So if got to the end of the project, they're like, this is not what we wanted, we would give them the money back because it's not worth for us to have somebody out there going, you know what, this just wasn't good. We've never had to do that, but I always say that because when you enter in with a consultant, you're like, I don't know if this is really going to work. There are some financial advisors. There's one that I'm working with right now, and he says, I need to get to like several billion for this to be worth it for me. And I'm like, I know you do. And he's like, will you give me the money back if I don't get to several billion? And I said, well, if you really want the money back, if you think that none of this has been helpful to you, then yes, I will give you the money back. And he laughs because he knows it's been valuable. It's a matter of staying consistent with the work that he needs to put in order to get his pipeline big enough to be able to have his people be able to sell enough. So, yeah.
Uh-huh. I know that you've written, is it 9 books now?
Yes, I've added to my business books, I've added a couple of textbooks for the work I do in the universities.
So I think the big academic name in marketing is this guy Kotler up at Northwestern or wherever he is. How is what you teach similar to and different from what he's doing?
Yeah, I think everybody basically uses the model, especially I teach the principles of marketing. So every module is a different subject in marketing, and it spans everything from, branding and logos, advertising, sales, all the way to marketing research and analytics, supply chain, all distribution, all of that is marketing, right? And the way that Kotler laid it out many, many, many years ago is really basically the same way that we all the professors in marketing kind of go through it. It's a matter of how you teach it and how you bring in the newer aspects. So right now, if you teach marketing without talking about, let's say, social media, or you teach marketing without talking about AI, is completely engrossed in marketing right now. And so if you're using a textbook from 3 years ago, there's not going to be anything about that in there. So professors have to be able to be flexible and dynamically teach these courses, so they're being taught in a way that students will graduate and go out into the world and go, I learned about that in college, as opposed to I didn't get anything out of that class.
Another saying that I've heard, and I don't know where it comes from exactly, is something to the effect that, the CEO says, I know 90% of my marketing dollars are wasted. I just don't know which 90%. Is that a
Yeah.
reasonable thing for people to say and think?
The problem is with that in not really digging deep into the analytics or doing things that you just simply can't track. For instance, if you're doing a lot of web advertising and advertising on apps and things like that, advertising on podcasts, it's really hard to know who's actually listened and heard your message. So you're spending this money, but you really don't have the track back on it. Now they could say, well, 2 million people listened to that podcast, but did they forward through the advertisements? Because I forward through the advertisements, right? When I'm listening to a podcast. So what can we actually track? And I think that if you want to not feel the way that 50% is I have no idea which 50% is making me money or not, is to be able to only do the things that are gonna be able to track. And most of the
Uh,
things you cannot track in marketing. So social media, you can track engagement, you can track clicks, you can track buys. Social media is becoming, more of a direct line for a lot of good marketers. But does it work for financial advisors? And I would say that people aren't going in looking at a cute outfit on Instagram and clicking, and clicking to buy financial advisor services. It works for fashion and it works for some other things, but it doesn't necessarily work for financial advisors quite yet. But those things are trackable because we know, hey, listen, we had this many people saw this, impressions they call it, but did anybody do anything about it? And it's the same thing like a financial advisor advertises on LinkedIn or does a post on LinkedIn and they get 0 likes, shares, comments. Well, we can pretty much tell that that's not working. You see financial advisors do that all the time, post on LinkedIn with their company approved, boring kind of posts. And you feel like you're doing something and you are getting a little exposure. You're out there, but nobody's clicking or liking it. Is it really working? And I would say no, but I think it's to go more in depth as to what's actually working that we can actually track.
really focusing on trying to focus almost entirely on things that you can track some way or another.
That's exactly right. And part of that is we have to have a team of people that will track it. So if somebody calls and says, I'd like to have a meeting with so-and-so financial advisor, and they don't ask, where did you hear about us? And they don't ask, did you go to our website? Did you check out our LinkedIn profile? Then we never know where they went. We just go, oh, it was a referral from so-and-so, but we never got the details to find out what steps they took. Just because there's a referral they came in, what are the things that you did? No, I didn't look at anything. I just got the phone number from my friend and I called. Or, yeah, I checked you out online. I watched one of your videos. I listened to a podcast. That's what I did. But we don't ask those questions, so we have no idea what's working.
Uh-huh. And so part of what you do, I hear you saying, is you'll work with somebody, and a lot of that's fixable by changing
Yeah.
the client's processes.
Yes, and
Just
it's
because,
tweaks to the process.
uh-huh. If someone wanted to read only one of your books, not all 9, or at least not to start with all 9, which one, somebody who's interested in understanding more about what you do and how it works, is one of your books?
Yeah, the bestseller that I wrote is called The Connectors, and it really is an evergreen book about how you connect with others. And it, there are a lot of financial advisors that are really good at connecting, but do you need to ever refine those skills? And so the book, The Connectors, is the one that I would suggest. Another book is And the Clients Went Wild. And it talks about how you create, sort of that raving fan or whatever. But I would go with The Connectors because it's back to the basics on how we're actually making a difference by the way that we listen, by the way that we talk, by the way that we create a client experience based on our personal interaction with somebody.
Okay. We're almost out of time. What else, if I haven't asked you about, would you like to have an opportunity for the audience to hear?
Yeah, I think if somebody wants to learn more about marketing, wants to know more about marketing, there's so much out there online. I do a blog and a video short just about every single week on topics that are really bite-sized. And so if anyone's interested in that, redzonemarketing.com, and you can go to our blog or check out our videos on YouTube. The other thing is about me is I think the way that I've been in this business for a long time, and the way that I stay ahead of marketing is by teaching young people. Because if you teach young people how to do marketing, you've got to be on your game, because you don't want the students in your class to be ahead of you. And I think that has really helped me in the marketing that we do for financial advisors, because the latest, greatest trends, whether we can use them in financial services or not, I pretty much know about them, because we have to be able to teach that to our students, so that we don't look like we're behind the times as academics either.
What are you finding the biggest challenge right now?
In which side of my life, academia or
in the marketing, helping your clients side?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge has always been is to want to, or have the, let's call it the wherewithal. No, it's the guts, to have the guts to be able to say something that's different than what everybody else in financial services says.
Fascinating.
I think it's all about messaging, and people don't feel comfortable going outside. So for instance, we have got this team that we're working with right now, and they told their whole story. All the principals in the firm told the whole story to me. And these guys have a blue collar value structure. And I'm like, this is different. And they talk about it with their clients, and they really all grew up blue collar, and now they're these successful financial advisors. But that core, and I said, well, we need to do this and this, and we need to message it. And they're like, wait a minute, we don't know if we want to put that on our website, because we want to fit in. But in marketing, the whole goal is, how can we find a way to get that firm to stand out from all the competitors, because we believe that they do. And we'll find the things that make you stand out, and then we'll recommend that you use them.
I wish we had more time, Maribeth. I know you said it before, but tell me again. So if the audience wants to learn more about you and the firm, where should they go?
Yeah, you can go to redzonemarketing.com, or you can go to, that's the best place to go, is redzonemarketing.com. You can also go to YouTube and just search for Red Zone Marketing.
Okay. And that's Red Zone, like inside the 20-yard line?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me on. This has been great.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets, where we provide the info you need from successful leading financial advisors, lawyers, and CPAs. Your hosts, Roger and Catherine Silk, invite you to learn more about Sterling Foundation Management by visiting sterlingfoundations.com.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.